Hi everyone. So I'm going to take you through how to create a pivot table. I'm just going to go straight into it. So here we have a data source here, some raw data that I've just made up. So yours could look anything at all. It could have 20 columns, it could have 200 rows. It doesn't matter how many cells you have occupied with data. You can use a pivot table to make that data a lot simpler. So, first of all, what a pivot table is it takes your raw data, puts it into a table automatically, and then you can reconfigure it into any which way you want. And it's a lot simpler to see your data, to see any kind of errors in your data, and just to kind of help collate it all together a lot easier. So, I'll show you what that looks like. So, in this simple bit of raw data, I've got all of the months for the first 4 months of the year. I've got names of people who have paid you, for example, and then I've got all of the amounts here. So, what you do first is you highlight all of your data, and then to create a pivot table, you go to the very top and click Insert, and then you click on Pivot Table, which is the very first drop down here. So you click once, and then you'll get this little pop up. And what it's saying is select a table or range. So this is literally just what you've highlighted already. If you accidentally click off it, it will highlight the cell that you've clicked on. So just make sure you're highlighting all of the data that you want put into a little pivot table. The next little bit here, it just says, do you want to put this pivot table into a new worksheet, a new tab, or in your current tab that you're on now? I always think it's good to have it in a new tab, but you can click either of these. So I'm just going to stick with what it's already highlighted for me. So leaving it in a new worksheet. So click OK. And then you can see here. So this was your original tab with the data. And then it's created a brand new tab here with your pivot table. Now it will come up as completely blank, very first thing. And you'll notice these words here. So these are the words of, each of the columns that has your data. So it was name, month, and amount, which is name, month, and amount. So what you just had there in your raw data. And then what you do is you click on these. So if I click month, it just automatically puts it into a row. Same with name. The pivot table is really smart and it just automatically puts it into row for you. And then the amount, if you click that, it just falls into values because the pivot table knows and Excel knows that amount, the numbers are values, so it should fall into there. Another good way to do it is if you don't want to click them, you can literally drag them. So you could be like, okay, I know amount needs to be in values, so you can drag and click. Same with rows, same with any of them really. And you just pop them in there. Okay, so this is what the pivot table is here, highlighted here. So a good thing to know is that little filter that you did see has now disappeared. If you want to get it back up, you just click on the pivot table itself and you will get this pivot table field to appear. If you click off it, it'll disappear. So this is what your pivot table looks like. It's dragging in the name, the month, and the amounts. And it's also pulling through different grand totals as well at the bottom. So if you right click and go on to pivot table options and click on display here, I always like to make sure it's in the classic pivot table layout. So if you click classic pivot table layout here and click OK, it just shows it in a better format, I think. Everyone is different, but this is how I like to do it. So you've got the name, the month, and the amount, and you can see all of the totals here for each person. So you can see Luke has paid 400, Paul has paid 50,000, and Sam has paid 1,500. Now, if you want to get rid of these totals here, and you just want to see their names, you right click, and then there's a section here that says subtotal name, and it's ticked. So if you click that once, it'll disappear. Okay. So now you've got Luke, Paul, and Sam. Sam is paid twice in 2 different months. And then you're thinking, oh, actually, I want to see Sam's totals because it doesn't show 1,500 here. It just says 1,500. So if you want to get the subtotals back up, you right click, put on subtotals. And then if you want to hide Luke and Paul, you click this little minus button here and it will get rid of those two totals, but it will keep Sam's grand total of 1,500. And you can just have a bit of a play in whatever way you want to view this. You can maximize, minimize the cells, and you can manipulate the data however you want it to. And these little buttons here are called expand and collapse buttons. So if you right click, expand collapse, you can expand everything in the entire field as a quick way of doing it, or you can collapse everything in the entire field. A really quick way of minimizing everything. Okay, so if we open up everything, so if we expand entire field, okay, and I'm going to get rid of the subtotal for a minute. So as I said, right click, subtotal, deselect it, and you just got the names, okay? So let's say you want the month first rather than the name. So you go back into your pivot table field on the right here, and you can literally drag these. So you drag name to second and month to first. So it will show month first, then name, then your total. These subtotals will always reappear. So if you just right click, click subtotal, and it will get rid of the total for you. And now you've got this perfect little table that has everything in a descending month order, all of the names, all of the amounts, and a grand total. Perfect. And just have a bit of a play with this. So, for example, you might want to see the months in the column section. So you drag the month over to the column and you'll see it in this view. And this is what's really good with pivot tables is you can have a bit of a play as to how you want to view them. And, it'll show complex raw data in really simple forms like this. Or you might think, oh, okay, I want to put the month back here, but I want to filter on the name. So you drag the name into a filter. And this filter shows you, okay, I just want to see what Sam has paid me. So you click on Sam and it would just show the months he's paid for and the amount. Same with Luke. It would just show the month he's paid and the amount. So you can really just have a play with whatever way you want to see this data. And pivot tables are the best way for it. Now, if you want to use this and make it look a little bit prettier uh, and get rid of all of these grid lines you see here, you click View up the very top and grid lines here, you deselect that. So as you can see, it's gotten rid of all of the grid lines here. And if you want to move it, you can do, or insert a column, you can do. So if you just right click, insert, it doesn't affect the pivot table at all. You can, add in rows and everything because everything outside here is just like a normal Excel sheet. And then when you click on this is the pivot table itself. So if you wanted to do, for example, type in here, so like this is my pivot table option, you can type in here, you can copy, you can paste like a total, it's a normal Excel sheet. You can even put in numbers in here. So let's say, for example, Luke has, so this is the owed money column, and it's outside of a pivot table. Okay. So you could say he's owed me 500, Paul has owed me £100,000, and Sam owed me, 1,500 in the month of February, for example. Or you can, collapse these and have them all together. So you can still do like a normal Excel formula. So I could say 500 minus E5, and it will pick up the pivot table in E5 and be like, okay, there's £100 of a difference. And if you drag this down, it will drag like any other formula. So you could say, Paul owed me £100,000. He's only paid me 50,000. He owes me 50,000. Same with Sam. He owed me 1,500. He's paid 1,500. And just to note with this, it's a little bit trickier. So if you were to just highlight a cell minus this cell, you'll get this crazy long thing. Okay. And I'll just show you what I mean. So if you try and take away 500 from 400, you'll get this really long data source. And if you click return, it will give you the right answer for the very first line. But if you drag it down, it won't. It will think it's on a different, it will stick to this 400 and take everything away from 400, which is incorrect. So anytime you want to do, a formula using a pivot table in an Excel sheet, just type in the cell number. So this would be E5, E5, and then drag it down. It will be G6 minus E6, and then it would be G7 minus E7. So, you're rarely going to have to do this where you do numbers outside a pivot table. To be honest, I would just always say to use the pivot table itself. So let's say, for example, you want to add that column into the pivot table raw data rather than having to play with numbers outside of it. It's super easy. So you go back into your raw data here and you just add in a column and you say, okay, this is the amount paid, and then this was the, let's say, money owed. Okay. So you can say for Paul, let's say he owed us £100,000. Don't know why he owes so much money. Sam owes us 5,000. Luke owes us 400, and Sam is the same person, so we'll just have that as 0. Now, what you need to do here is because you've added in another column into your data source, you need to make sure you're picking up all the data. So you go up to the very top here, okay, and it says Pivot Table Analyze, and you change the data source, and you click this here, okay, and it will bring you automatically to your data source here. And you can see it's only picking up this little green box and it's missing out your latest column. So what you do there is you just highlight everything and it will pick up all of your data. Okay, so you can see here amount paid, amount owed. It's rejigged it because you've got new data, but if you just click them, everything will appear as normal again. Okay, and you can rejig these again if you want to put months, then name, then amount. It's totally grand. Or if you want the name up front and you want to get rid of the subtotals or whatever, you can do. Okay, and yeah, it's as easy as that. It's as easy as that, and you can format this. So if you want it in the center, you can go up to home and put it in the center, or else you can put in the little commas here. You can, get rid of the decimal places. You can do whichever way you want it. And you can also put it in a little box. So you can put it in a little border to make it look pretty. And if I just hide that top row there, you can have it like this, for example, if you wanted to, in a little box. Or you can just not have a box at all and just click on the design function. So if we get rid of the border, you can click up the very top and you can change the colors around. You can get orange, yellow, blue, whatever your heart desires. So there's lots of different options here. So yeah, make sure you have a play. Have a little play with all of these about where they sit, where the values sit, where the names sit, everything like that. And it's really a great way to make raw data, complex raw data, a lot simpler. So let me know how you get on in the comments. And if you're having any troubles with pivot tables, maybe comment below if you want to see another video on how to do this. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. See you soon.